Okay, this is Gary Mark, and this is part 2 of the Buddhist Learning Review for 2010, preparation for the introductory exam scheduled to take place sometime in October. As you may have noticed, Joe Eastburn is not with me today. He had an accident. He actually dislocated his shoulder. As invariably happens when we make commitments to things, obstacles arise. It's one of the wonderful things we learn how to deal with in this Buddhism. And that's a kind of a great dovetail in today's topic, which is the topic of faith, practice, and study. And that's the first article in the Buddhist Learning Review pamphlet, which we discussed last time, is available online at sgi-usa.org and also at your local bookstore. Anyway, I put together a little keynote and presentation on this subject, and I'm going to kind of walk you through it. So this is what it is. It's called Faith, Practice, and Study, and I'm hoping you can see that. And the first quote at the beginning of the article is, "Exert yourself in the two ways of practice and study. Without practice and study, there can be no Buddhism. You must not only persevere yourself, you must also teach others. Both practice and study arise from faith. Teach others to the best of your ability, even if only a single sentence or phrase." This is taken from The True Aspect of All Phenomena, the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, Volume 1, page 386. This quote right here, encapsulates the entire article. And actually, the entire article is based on this quote. And so I'm going to run you through some of the main points here. Okay, so here's the background. And Nichiren Daishonin wrote the letter, The True Aspect of All Phenomena, which contains that passage that I just read, when he was in exile at Ichinozawa on Sado Island, which is May 17, 1273. He was 52 at the time. Addressed to Sairenbo no Nichijo, this letter is Nichiren's response to Sairenbo's question concerning the meaning of the phrase, the true aspect of all phenomena, in the Expedient Means chapter of the Lotus Sutra. So Sairenbo was asking him, what does that phrase mean? And in response, Nichiren wrote the letter, what that quote is taken from, that we just read. So one of the first quotes, one of the first points in the article is the concept of dynamic balance. And Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism encourages all people to carry out a dynamic balance of the elements of faith, practice, and study. In speaking, I'm going to talk about practice and study now. In speaking of faith, practice, and study, Nichiren teaches that it is essential to make efforts in the two areas of practice and study based on strong faith in the Gohonzon. And actually drew a little diagram about how this works. And here it is. Practice and study lead to faith. See the arrows? So we're going to talk a little bit about that some more right now. So let me get this presentation back up here. And so one of the first points that the article makes is about study. And as we study the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, Daisaku Ikeda, Toda, Makiguchi, other philosophers, you notice President Ikeda is constantly quoting other philosophers and great thinkers throughout history. All these things, all these writings, all these studies that we do, even reading the newspaper or watching a movie, gives rise to understanding. It helps us to understand the world in which we live, our place in it, and how to make the most of that. This understanding reinforces faith. Remember that diagram I showed you with the arrows of practice and study pointing to faith? So those things reinforce faith. And implicit in the adage, without practice and study there can be no Buddhism, you could also say without practice and study there could be no faith. And from that, if you draw a logical diagram, you'd understand that Buddhism is equal to faith, and faith is equal to Buddhism. So, there's another concept in here called practice for oneself and practice for others. So we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, we chant for our benefit, we chant for others' benefit, we teach others about Buddhism, we tell others about Buddhism, that's practicing for others. And there's definitely a dynamic balance there in practice for oneself and practice for others. If you're out of balance on one of those things, it's not good either. So, let's see. So here's the diagram about without practice and study there can be no Buddhism. Buddhism is equal to faith. And so one of the great values that SGI USA has for us is it helps us to create a community of believers which helps us to be anchored in the three pillars of faith, practice, and study. In other words, by going to meetings and participating in SGI USA activities and sharing this Buddhism with each other, we help to kind of reinforce and anchor ourselves. And this is a theme that's constantly throughout the writings of all of our great founders of this Buddhism, is that if we kind of just do this on our own, there will be a tendency to kind of become arrogant and adhere to our own self-righteous views, which, as many of us know, can get us into trouble. So I apologize that Joe Eastburn couldn't be here today. He kind of injured his shoulder. He wouldn't tell me how. So I hope that whatever he was doing while he is injuring his shoulder was fun. Let's see what we're going to study next week. Hold on. So we did faith, practice, and study today. The next article is going to be on the 10 worlds. And that'll be an interesting challenge, compacting that into a 5 or 6 minute video. Alright, so until next week, see you next week. Have fun, and remember, faith, practice, and study. Alright, talk to you later.